Broadcast the rhythm. Go live, Vegas on the screen, feeling the flow, so pristine. Boom, as the beats align, electric dreams, they intertwine.
We just need to forget about everything. Put away our problems. Get along with each other.
All right, and with that, welcome on in, student of the game, off and running on a Tuesday afternoon on this fine June, and what a afternoon in this fine June it is, because as the dust continues to settle from the historic, monumental event and achievement that we all witnessed just days ago, more of it continues to soak in, and the realization continues to settle in that the New York Knicks are indeed the champions of the National Basketball Association, world champions for the first time in 53 years. And the headlines, the press clippings, all the attention, the media rounds, the talk shows, the commentary, it just gets better and better. And yes, this show may seem like it has a certain, let's just say, lean today, as we were off and running all our social media platforms, Go Live Vegas app. That's kind of what I was working out there, just make sure we were good on that right at the top of the intro there. But now that we're off and running, so happy to be here from the Go Live Vegas studio. And, you know, it's been a lot of reflection for me because, like I said, this may be a day where it seems like I'm coming with a bit of an angle, a bit of a bias. And if you're thinking that, you'd be goddamn right. And that's because sometimes in this world of sports media, you have these realizations, and it's that while, yes, it is important to separate your bias and your fandom from your coverage, every once in a while you have these epiphanies, if you will, that remind you why you entered this space to begin with. And with the New York Knicks winning their first title, not only in 53 years, but in my lifetime, something I have long fantasized about, but was never quite certain would be a reality, both in the fan capacity and here as the sports talk show host, in that capacity as well, in the broadcasting capacity. All of these different things kind of coinciding and converging to where I wasn't sure if it ever happened, if I would ever come in and do a show and recap one of my favorite teams winning a championship, let alone seeing my favorite basketball team win a championship for the first time ever. Doing a show on that, let alone soaking it in as a fan. And being able to have that happen simultaneously and now know that that fantasy is a reality, that's when it like really hits you in the face like, wow, this was a special moment of the likes, at least on this show, and really any show that I've done since my broadcasting career began for that matter, I've never been able to really tap into as far as that dynamic, because the last time New York hoisted a championship trophy and one of my favorite teams I got to see win it all ultimately was when I was a senior in high school with the New York Giants in February of 2012. So it's been a while. And I'm cool with that. I'm used to coming in here and talking about the Dodgers in the immediate aftermath, talking about the Seahawks in the immediate aftermath, right? Whoever it may be. like I'll do with Carolina here in a bit for the Stanley Cup. But I've never come in to do a show in the aftermath of a championship event to where I have to kind of sift through it all and realize, yes, I'm still in a celebratory state, but I also have a show to host. And we do got a lot to unpack with these iconic New York Knicks now of the 2026 campaign. And yes, I do say iconic because they are, well, exactly that. When you look at this 2026 New York Knicks team and what they were able to do, we'll get to the significance and what it means to New York in a minute. But just looking at the team and how it's structured by President Leon Rose, in just a short matter of time, a couple of years, as a matter of fact. The way this roster was structured was an exact indication of a team, a front office, and a culture who knew exactly where it wanted to go with the exact type of players it wanted to bring in. And with what we got with this New York Knicks lineup were the right players in the right place at the right time. And we saw it brewing. We saw it brewing for the last couple of years, and it seemed like it was getting closer and closer, but they weren't quite there yet. And then Jalen Brunson decides to take the next step. And he had already been ascending for seasons, and he was already stellar in the NBA Cup. But then as the season kind of went on down the stretch, we were wondering if that offense was really sustainable, if they really were the right type of team to make a run in the playoffs. And then next thing you know, the playoffs begin, and they're down 2-1 against Atlanta and a game C.J. McCollum team. And you're wondering, all right, maybe then it is time we make a call to Giannis. Maybe it is now time we blow it up because this whole Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns experiment just isn't working. And then next thing you know, when it's all set in stone, and again, like I said, the dust continues to settle, the Knicks finish 16-3 in the postseason. They topped San Antonio in 5 games in the NBA Finals. Their losses were by a combined 6 points. Their wins by a combined 289 points. And they solidify one of the greatest runs you will ever see in the NBA postseason. That's the objective way to look at it. Again, we'll get to the subjectivity in a little bit. I know I opened with some subjectivity, but that was just an honest moment of reflection for me. Being able to host a show like this and being able to have a moment of fandom like that converging, I wouldn't even say that's a rarity. It's a first-time occurrence for me. So it's pretty special. But when, again, you look at the way this team was constructed in the matter of time it was, that is now proven to be special too. OG Anunoby. We knew what he was capable of athletically, what he could do as a two-way player. Banged up with injuries, on the 2019 Toronto roster. Won a championship, but wasn't a factor. Was he really going to be able to come to fruition because you had some concerns about his health and his body and would he be able to hold up? Karl-Anthony Towns, was he too soft? Was Mikal Bridges worth the haul you traded him for? Was Josh Hart really going to be a focal point of the starting lineup? And was Jalen Brunson big enough or athletic enough to get it done as a point guard and as the leader of the whole thing? And in the process, we saw, if you want to go off the entire starting lineup, OG Anunoby be the two-way factor we always thought he could be, even before New York, while making the iconic play of the series in Game 4 with the tip-in in Madison Square Garden that will stand the test of time and deserves its own statue. Karl-Anthony Towns, the first game, the X factor, if you will. His on-off numbers throughout the entirety of the series were tremendous. And even though he wasn't a huge factor in the deciding Game 5, ultimately, him being out there with his shooting ability, his perimeter ability, what he can do as a big man, a modern-day big man, that is exactly what this team needed given the guards and the forwards they have. And then that's when you look at the Bridges. And that's when you look at the Harts. Harts getting it done off the glass. Great rebounding. Bridges, little hot and cold, but did exactly what you needed him to, particularly from the mid-range when he got going, and complemented the offense in that role exactly the way you intended when you brought him in. And then, of course, the captain. The captain, the hero, the new king of New York, and rightfully so, Jalen Brunson, who we all wondered Even if you deep down supported him and believed in him and were a fan of him, which I was at Villanova, but I still have my doubts and points of speculation because I did wonder if he could be a number one. I knew he would have a gig in the league. I knew he could be a prominent player in the league. No doubt about that. But a true number one, to be the one that spearheads this Knicks organization as they try to turn the page, I was curious to see how it all worked out, given his role complimenting Luka Doncic in Dallas before the trade happened, or before the acquisition happened, rather, in 2022. And then next thing you know, gradually, each passing year gets bumped out 2 years in a row by Indiana. Next thing you know, again, NBA Cup, thinking that, or have people thinking that this could be the team. But then throughout, again, the final stretch not looking great. You wondered what would really be the final verdict. And what we got is one of the greatest runs in the history of the sport. And as clutch as Brunson was, and as tremendous as he was throughout the playoffs, it still felt throughout the series that he needed that one defining moment. And in Game 5, with the Spurs facing elimination and his team up 3-1 after the tremendous heroics from nights before in the Garden, they go on the road and they get it done. He scores 45 points, the most in an elimination type spot since Jordan in 98. He had 15 points in the fourth quarter alone and essentially accounted for half the team's offense. He was that good. He didn't just give the type of performance he needed for his career trajectory, or even that the Knicks needed to capture their first title in 53 years. He gave the Knicks, he gave the sport of basketball, the entire sports landscape, one of the all-time great postseason performances in the clutch to seal the deal in a championship setting, a championship game, ever. One of the best you will ever see, and certainly one that is already on the upper echelon, or the Mount Rushmore, if you will, of New York sports greats. What he was able to do in that Game 5, essentially backpacking the team who had played so well, the bench who had played so well the night before. Mike Brown utilizing Jose Alvarado, getting an extra ball handler out there in Game 4 to take some of the pressure off of Brunson. That helped. We saw Mitchell Robinson obviously had some trouble from the foul line, but at the same time, he made up for that with being a walking offensive board. His O board is what essentially allowed the Knicks to seal the deal. Right? Landry Shamet, the energy he brings, Jordan Clarkson, all these guys perfectly complemented that starting five. Mike Brown utilized them when he needed to, and even though they weren't a factor in Game 5 the way they were in Game 4, everybody up to that point played their part enough. OG, Bridges, Cat, Josh Hart with, again, the rebounds, all of it. It was all set up for the captain to take the moment and to seize the moment, and he did, and it was one of the most tremendous things any New York Knicks fan or any basketball fan will ever see. So much so where I was texting other people, I'm like, are my blinders on here, or are we really witnessing something this special? And everyone who I was texting who is not a New York Knicks fan immediately got back to me like, no, this is the type of stuff that will stand the test of time. It felt like that in the moment, and like I said at the opening of the show, as we get further and further away from it all being set in stone this past weekend, but still kind of not done with the celebratory antics yet because the parade is still underway, right? And as we sit here and reflect, it becomes more and more apparent just how great it was. In the moment, of course, it was going to be great. But a few days removed, you realize just how significant it was, both, again, to the history of the sport and to the history of this organization. And that's why it's so special. Because, yes, in the process, he silences the doubters. He changes the organization. He uplifts everyone around him, while in the meantime, everyone around him helps complement him and put him in a position to shine and thrive. Tom Thibodeau, yeah, maybe parting ways with him was the final move, but Mike Brown was not their first move in terms of the hiring. They wound up going with him, and he assembled a great staff. He has given nothing but credit to his staff, and he's really made it clear how much it's been a cohesive effort. But Mike Brown did something that Thibodeau didn't do as much, utilize the bench. However, Mike Brown doesn't take this team to a championship, let alone win one, if Thibodeau doesn't mold them. So even Thibodeau and all the Knicks in the passive anyway, he's just the recent pass as the coach, but all of the Knicks along the way, and someone as me as a fan who, again, And this is the majority of the fan base. 69-70% of the fan base was not alive in 70 and 73. We had heard the legends of Clyde and Willis, and we ourselves witnessed the great teams in the 90s, coached by Pat Riley and Jeff Van Gundy, that were so dynamic and physical and intense and athletic and captivated the city and the country, but just couldn't quite get over the hump. Despite the great battles in the East with Indiana and with Atlanta and with Miami, there was always either, Jordan and Scotty with Phil Jackson, right? Or, of course, you have Hakeem, the one year they make it and lose to Houston. Then they get back in 99 and they go down to a Spurs team who they were going to have a tough time beating, right? With Popovich and Duncan. Like, we experienced what it's like to have a great Knicks team, but not a team that was just equipped enough to get quad over the level. But all those legends during those years, even the notable names in the years of limbo, right, if you will, when you didn't really know what the organization held in its future. All of those things seem to manifest and culminate all at the same time, even if they had nothing to do with the starting lineup or the rotation working out there on the floor. You felt it even just watching, and everyone who's covered it, who covered the series, was there for the series, has said the same thing. But even just watching your television screen, you picked it up. Scrolling through it in the day since on social media, you pick it up. And you see all the great names in the past. Yeah, you assume Clyde and Pat to be there. Clyde has been around, forever since he retired. He's a broadcaster. Ewing is an ambassador. But then you see Starks, Houston, right? Bernard King. And then the people who aren't as necessarily closely affiliated with the organization anymore in the capacity that they work for them or in some way employed or affiliated, but rather they're just there to support the organization because of how important the organization was to their careers. Larry Johnson, Spree, Carmelo, Marbury, J.R. Smith, everyone. You had Iman Shumpert and Jeremy Lin in a media capacity for ESPN. They were there. There were Knickerbockers everywhere, and it was awesome because it all meant so much to them. It's not necessarily like a moral victory and validates their struggles and their shortcomings in the past. No, it's more so that, look, we know how much this meant to you too. We know how much it meant to those fans of those teams who weren't around for 70 and 73, but got to see you get that close and not quite make it with some awesome teams in the 90s. We're going to acknowledge your efforts as well, your contributions as well. We want you to be a part of this journey, a part of this epic run. And that's what made it so much better, to see the different camera shots of the Knicks reacting, the Knicks greats of the past reacting, to see them on social media all hanging out with each other. It's almost as if like, yo, if you wore the orange and blue, come on in. We want you to be a part of it. And that's why this is so special. Mike Brown did exactly what he needed to do. Leon Rose did exactly what he needed to do. And even James Dolan, say what you want about him, in the moment of championship victory on the stage with Ernie Johnson, he did what he needed to do, ultimately. Telling the fans, hey, I hope the next one doesn't take this long. And naturally, in typical New York fan and typical New York media fashion, you're going to want to turn the page, and you're going to want to focus on where the Knicks go from here. And if this unit is good enough to win this year and contend in the recent years, there's no reason this is going to dissipate anytime soon, especially with Brunson being the focal point and now the entire basketball world truly knowing who Brunson is. That being said, obviously there's opposition. OKC's going to be right there again. The wise guys in Vegas think Boston's going to be formidable because they're going to get a lot healthier. And ultimately, the team who they went down to in the San Antonio Spurs, who entered this series as the favorite, but after the game one comeback by the Knicks, then flipped to the dog, and the Knicks had the chalk the rest of the way. Of all the teams slated to possibly win it next year, it was the team we just saw go down and blow lead after lead. A team in the San Antonio Spurs that led 72% of this series, and they only won one game. It was a 5-game series in which multiple instances they had double-digit leads after the first quarter. 72% of the series, they were ahead, and they were only able to win one. That is absolutely remarkable, and I don't think that's something we will ever see repeated again. And like I said, the numbers, they sell themselves. 16-3, sweeping Philadelphia, sweeping Cleveland, being able to come back being able to come back in game 1 against San Antonio, being able to put your foot down on the gas again in game 2, and with as bad as it looked in game 4, and even as bad as it looked in game 5, it just seems so fitting that time and time again, the Knicks got it done when their back was against the wall in this championship series. That's why this run is so special. It'd be one thing if they just won a lot of games in the clutch. It'd be one thing if they just were dominant and swept several teams. They did both. We saw them kick Philadelphia's ass. We saw them kick Cleveland's ass. And then we saw them have to battle and face adversity against a team who was young, hungry, scrappy, and talented as hell. And they're all going to be back. But what we saw at the same time, and we got this very early, hence why the odds flipped pretty early, it became clear that what we have with the San Antonio Spurs is a young team who's facing a team of grown men who is ready for this moment, a team who has gone through adversity, and ultimately a team who was poised and primed and ready for this where San Antonio simply was not. Victor Wembanyama is going to get his. The surrounding cast you have around him, they're going to get his. Harper was tremendous. Castle was tremendous. So many of them, when they needed to be, were great. But then when you needed them to continue that, that's when they faltered. Because you needed to see what they did in the first halves to prove how good they were, right? The Knicks wouldn't have had their backs against the wall in that spot anyway if they weren't up to snuff like that. We saw the smothering defense in Game 5 in the first half. We saw the incredible three-point shooting. A record for three-pointers landed early on in a game, in a playoff game, in Game 4. But it was those three-pointers in Game 4, jacking them up from downtown recklessly, continuing again in Game 5, right? And eventually, given the Knicks' offense and the caliber of Brunson and their ability to get going on a run, that smothering defense wasn't going to hold up forever, and you had no insurance points when you needed it. So this is going to be, everyone is going to return, no doubt about it. But this is a pivotal moment for the Spurs team that they needed. And they will go back to the drawing board, and they will learn from this. But this is also the standard in the National Basketball Association. Outside of Magic Johnson, you don't really get your championship in the early part of your career. And even Magic, after winning that championship as a rookie, still had a few years where he struggled overcoming the Celtics, which was the next big step for him. But you look at LeBron and the adversity in the first run in Cleveland, and even after the Heatles assembled, that was delayed a year because of the incredible run by Dirk Nowitzki and the Dallas Mavericks in 2011. And they sent him packing. So LeBron had to wait even further then after going to Miami and assembling the team with Bosh and Wade. Jordan and the Pistons, perhaps the best example, got his ass kicked for years. They practically had to change the rules of the game. And finally, it pivoted, right? There's examples that you could use time and time again, with perhaps the most recent being Jalen Brunson. He took his licks, and he had to adapt his game and to fine-tune his game to become a true number one and prove that he was an investment worth making. And boy, did he do that when the moment was his. And that's because exactly the moment was exactly that, his. It was not yet Victor Wembanyama's or the Spurs. It will be eventually, in due time. No doubt about it. But we're not there yet. And in the NBA, you have to take your licks, take your bumps, cut your teeth, whatever idiom you want to use. It's imperative in your trajectory as a professional in the National Basketball Association to find these bumps in the road. So San Antonio will be back, but so will the Knicks. And that's what makes this season really, despite all the controversy and despite all the bumps in the road on the forecast for the offseason and the big plate that Adam Silver and the brass of the association have in front of them, to culminate this season and this postseason the way they did, to get the best possible matchup between the Knicks and the Spurs, and to get an absolutely classic series, an iconic run, and a legendary MVP performance for a team that needed it, for a town that needed it, and for honestly a sport that needed it. It was the absolute perfect storm. And before I go to break, I will say this really quick, because I kind of mentioned this in the opening. There's something special when you can watch one of your favorite teams. But I've been lucky enough to see the Giants win 2 Super Bowls in 4 years. I've been lucky enough to see the Yankees achieve one of the greatest dynasties in modern history, really any history for that matter. But this was different. And not only because it was the first of my lifetime and the first for so many and so long who were able to witness the ones during the years, of prominence, right? Even with that, you also, anyone who's a fan of this team also got to see their city united. And even if you were not in the city like I am, even if you have roots in there through family, or your family was once there, your upbringing was there, you were raised there and you left, you felt it. If you were in any of the boroughs, in the outer areas, through Long Island, even up in the state, anywhere in the metropolitan area and beyond, you felt this if you had any allegiance or any connection to New York City, because of how special it was and because of how universal the Knicks are in New York City. As great as it is to watch the Giants, the Yankees, and whoever else it may be, you still have fans who like the Jets, who like the Mets. You may like the Rangers, but there's tons of fans who like the Islanders. Everyone in New York loves the Knicks. There may be some people who've been born in the last, decade or two who like Brooklyn, but ultimately it is a Knicks city because the Knicks are the cultural unifier. And if you don't believe me, go look at all the reaction on social media. Look at the way the city has embraced the alumni, the organization has embraced the alumni, and the way they embrace this team, who will go down as one of the most beloved teams in the history of New York sports and one of the most memorable teams in the history of basketball. Everything that a Knick fan could possibly want in this situation happened. And if you see a Knick fan, bear with them, because they may still be in a trance. They may still be trying to, make sense of it all, because for the longest time, again, this was a fantasy. Now it no longer is a fantasy. It is a reality. And the sports world has now essentially been exposed to not only history, but just how important this dynamic and this relationship is between this team and the city. Because, again, they transcend borough, they transcend location. And through all the struggle since 1973, none of the belief or the support ever waned. And because of that, we have in turn one of the best stories you could possibly ask for in the world of sports. Something that I asked for as a talk show host, let alone as a fan. Again, I truly got to luck out and really get the best of both worlds in this scenario. But hey, listen, I know it's been New York heavy. You know my allegiance to my New York teams. At the same time, I'm a Vegas resident. And being that this is a Vegas-based network, Go Live Vegas, of course, we always put the spotlight on the town. And, of course, we had a championship solidified in town and a season end on its own right on the ice, as it ended in this past weekend in San Antonio on the hardwood. The NHL season came to a close as well, and we will hit on that on the other side as Carolina tops the Golden Knights in a tough one here in Vegas at T-Mobile. They go down in 6 games. Carolina wins their second cup in franchise history. But when we get back, I'll talk about where the Knights go from here and exactly what this means both for both the teams on the winning side of the coin and the losing side of the coin, given the state of hockey. Don't go anywhere. It's Student of the Game on a Tuesday. Like I said, I'm in a whirl here on the Go Live Vegas Network. Be sure to check out our app and all of our social media platforms so you too can join in on the conversation. All right, welcome back in from the Go Live Vegas studio. It's Student of the Game on a Tuesday, as we were off and running on a neck deep at this point. That was a haul, but man, like I said, I don't know if I've ever looked forward to a segment as a host as much as I did for that one. The first time I've ever actually really been able to recap anything as both a fan and a sportscaster. So again, pretty cool event. Monumental for me, monumental for the fan base, the culture, the team, and the city. But of course, being in Las Vegas, we like to keep the spotlight in Las Vegas. And the spotlight was on Las Vegas this weekend as well, as the hockey season came to a conclusion just after the NBA season did. The Carolina Hurricanes, quite frankly, let's not even beat around the bush. They outplayed the Golden Knights. They outskated them. They outscored them. Their goaltending was superior down the stretch. And while it looked like it was going to be a very back-and-forth type of series early on, once the goalie change was made to Brandon Bussi, the writing was on the wall. The Knights simply were not able to generate any offense in the final two games when they needed to. And as heartbreaking as it was, as tough as it was to watch, I think deep down most Knights fans knew that was the case because it just became, perfectly obvious. It became clear as day. I think Carter Hart ran out of steam as it went on. I think the offense just didn't have any juice, any firepower when they needed it, despite still being a very good team. And now that we know that John Tortorella, as of today, is not going to be returning next season, you have to wonder where the Knights go from here. Now, you have to trust them. The organization's been around for 10 years, and they may have lost their second cup, but they're also an expansion team who has appeared in 3 of them already. That says something, and the fact they're able to continue to generate and structure this roster with the depth they have and with the lines they have and being able to shuffle goaltenders in and out, you have to wonder, coaches in and out. Cassidy was great until he wasn't. Out he goes, in comes Tortorella when things were looking rough at the midpoint this season, and they go on a huge run. You have to wonder, maybe they're going to regret not bringing him back unless they have someone better in mind. It seems in the past when they've had someone better in mind, it tends to work out for them, but we'll see. But again, this is just something Golden Knights fans are going to have to deal with. These are the ebbs and flows of a sports culture, of a sports fandom in any market. We're growing as a market. We're going to have 3 teams before you know it, eventually 4 teams, and this is just how it goes. But the fact that we have been able to witness a team on this stage, in this city, on 3 separate occasions, including the inaugural season, I know no one wants to look at this like a moral victory or a glass half full type of thing. I get it. You don't want to look on the bright side after you lose, especially after you lose on your home ice. It's not pretty. It's not good. But at the same time, Carolina, given their history recently and given where they once were, Carolina, I'm not going to say they needed this more, but it makes sense given how Carolina fought and scratched and clawed for it. The performances by Aho, by their veterans. It just seemed like it was theirs for the taking even before they faced the Knights because the odds for them flipped. I'm not saying I base everything off the odds, the wise guys in the future boards, no. But Carolina became the favorite before we even got to the Cup Finals for a reason. And we saw the momentum for Colorado wane, and the Knights capitalized on that. But I knew heading in, this Carolina team, and the last time I was actually in the studio, we were watching game 1, and they got on the board they got up early on the board, and the Knights had a battle back into, and the Knights got the game 1 win. But you could just tell that there was something about this Carolina team, this Hurricanes team, that could skate with the Knights, that had the necessary speed, had the necessary pieces on offense, and ultimately, when it was all said and done, had the right goalie once that change was made and Bussi stepped in between the posts. And now Carolina, once again, Stanley Cup champions, the first time since 1996. I mean, I don't know what's going on with the sport of hockey. For the longest time, I was under the impression that the closer you are to the equator, the worse you are at hockey, and the further away you are, the better you tend to be at it. Because you look at your traditional hockey markets, other than Colorado, 3-4 years ago, it's been all warm weather teams, or at least teams in the Southwest, the Atlantic coast, even South Florida. I mean, you have Tampa Bay going back-to-back, Florida going back-to-back, Vegas kind of there in the middle, and now Carolina. It's just an interesting observation. But again, the local focus ultimately is on where the Knights go from here, and it's going to be a tough pill to swallow. But again, realize where you were and realize why you lost. The formula does add up. All the things the Golden Knights did a few years ago in 2023 were a part of a championship formula. The fans and everyone who covers this team and follows this team knew what that formula was, again, given their roster and given their coach. They just weren't able to execute when they needed to. It wasn't a lack of effort. It wasn't a lack of fight. I think just one team began to fizzle away when they needed to generate a lot of firepower, and the other team just put their foot on the gas and just did not look back. So congrats to the Carolina Hurricanes for that. Again, topping the Golden Knights in 6 games, winning it here in Vegas at T-Mobile Arena. And again, while that is an upsetting event in Vegas, it is certainly not going to be the last event in Vegas, as we are the entertainment capital of the world. There will be plenty more hockey to come in T-Mobile. The A's were in town this weekend, right? And before you know it, they're going to be playing at their new ballpark full time. I mean, everyone's excited, more excited for the Raiders than ever before. And, of course, we have our amazing live event culture that has been here long before sports ever arrived into town. Everything you could possibly want in terms of nightlife, shows, live performances, and, of course, sports is available on our brand-new Go Live Vegas app. You've heard me talk it up in terms of how you can find our live streams and our podcasts and everything in between. But it's not just broadcast feeds and content. You can find everything you want as it relates to the Las Vegas Valley, everything from the weather, everything from the... There you go. And they see I'm learning new information on the fly. 80s Persian and Club Latino music, FM style, coming to the app as well. We got your audio needs. We got your video needs. We got your live events, your tickets, your restaurants, your food trucks, your reviews, your hubs of information, your Q's and A's. Again, like I said, the weather, it's a scorcher out there now in Vegas, but it's going to be hot everywhere. If you're thinking about making a trip to Vegas, embracing the heat, you're going to know what the weather is. I mean, I get it. We all have it on our phone apps anyway, but now you don't even have to get out of the app. It's a hub for everything. It's a hub for all of our content, and it is a hub for all things Las Vegas that we're so excited to really just continue to push. I'm going to continue to push it on this show and others because Aaron, with all the work and the elbow grease he's put into it, certainly deserves it. There's more tweaks on the way that are going to be, worked out because he's hard at work at it and he's so passionate about it. But again, go check it out for yourself on Apple, on the Android store. You're not going to miss it. It's a Go Live Vegas app with tons of new features coming and tons of features already here. And I got to say this. It's been a very Vegas-focused show. It's been a very New York-focused show. Naturally so, right? I mean, look at the host. But one thing that wasn't Vegas or New York-focused at all was what went down in the nation's capital this past weekend. And look, say what you want because you hear that music, I'm got to get out of here. But you could separate, I'm just going to say this, you can separate the ancillary surroundings and the production effects, if you will, from the performances in the octagon. At the end of the day, I've covered fighting for a long time. I'm a sportscaster who hosts a sports talk show. I make fighting a part of my coverage. And even though we got to go here because we're kind of jammed on time, ultimately, I will always acknowledge great performances. And what we saw from Justin Gaethje and what was the most important performance you could say of his career because it was his last hurrah to an undisputed gold at 155 pounds. He put on a masterful performance where he had to overcome and prove a lot in his own right. He did so against the game Ilia Topuria. And in the meantime, Cyril Gane topping Alex Pereira. Two impervious or previously impervious fighters, as so we thought, going down to the new champions. And also showing that maybe weight classes are there for a reason. As good as Topuria is, he is not a natural 170, so you could rule that out. And we still have to wonder, as the jury is out, if Alex Pereira has a future heavyweight. You have to wonder. We'll definitely talk about it more in the future as we push along here in the summer on the show. But again, an outstanding performance by Gaethje. Topuria had to be retired on the stool, could not continue, could not come out of the corner, and that was a wrap. And, of course, again, Gane surprising everybody with what he was able to do, becoming the new interim heavyweight champion. A lot there to still be kind of determined as we move forward. But, again, masterful performances. Big wins also from O'Malley, Poofy, Lopez, Nickel. And it was a night where every single fight not only ended in a stoppage, but ended in a knockout or a TKO. Whenever that happens, it is a successful night of action, even if the ancillary stuff surrounding it is going to be polarizing, is going to be controversial, and understanding so. So I'm at the very least going to acknowledge the performances that we saw, the victories that we saw, the achievements in the careers that we saw, but at the same time, the conversation surrounding everything else we saw may be better reserved for another time when we do it all over again here from the Go Live Vegas studio on Studio the Game. So we appreciate you. We thank you. Be sure to check us out on the apps and all of our social media platforms. And again, stay tuned right here on all those platforms as we have Nancy's Riot coming up, and we are so excited for a special guest coming up. I'm actually going to leave it as a surprise here because we have an absolute legend in the studio, and we actually promote it on social media, so stay tuned because you don't want to miss it coming up right here on Go Live Vegas. So we thank you. We appreciate you. We'll catch you next time. You guys take care.